title, The Sacred Dog Mentioned in the Quran. What if I told you that one of the most celebrated stories of loyalty in the Quran doesn't just feature righteous men, but also their faithful dog? In a culture where dogs are often seen as impure, the Quran itself honors one as a guardian of the faithful. This is the story of the sacred dog that has been largely ignored, and it could change everything you thought you knew about dogs in Islam. For centuries, a powerful story has been told in many Muslim communities that dogs are ritually impure, that having one in your home stops angels from entering, and that keeping them as pets is a bad idea. This belief has created a deep-seated cultural bias, leaving many Muslims who love these animals feeling confused and conflicted. But is this the whole picture? Is this complex, loving creature truly condemned in Islam's holiest book? The answer, found right in the pages of the Quran, isn't just surprising, it's revolutionary. Section 1. The Widespread Myth. First, let us talk about the belief many of us grew up with, the idea that dogs are unclean. This mostly comes from a couple of key places. One is the issue of ritual purity, or ***. Many scholars, especially from the Shafi and Hanbali schools, say a dog's saliva is **najis**, or ritually impure. This is based on a hadith where Prophet Muhammad said that if a dog licks a bowl, it has to be washed 7 times, once with soil. For a lot of people, this was a clear sign that the animal itself is impure. The other major source of fear is the famous hadith that says angels of mercy woe and enter a house that has a dog or a picture in it. The story goes that the angel Gabriel was late for a visit with the Prophet because a small puppy was hiding under his bed. This led many to believe that keeping a dog inside cuts off divine blessings. Together, these ideas have built up a strong cultural aversion to dogs, painting them as dirty, dangerous, and spiritually harmful. Keeping one just for companionship instead of for a job like guarding or hunting is often seen as copying Western culture and losing a piece of your religious identity. But what happens when we put these ideas right next to the ultimate source of guidance, the Quran? A very different picture starts to take shape. Section 2. The Quranesque counter-narrative, the story of the cave **** in the 18th chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Kahf. God tells a powerful story about faith, persecution, and a miracle. It's the story of the companions of the cave, a group of young men who lived under a tyrannical king that would execute anyone who refused to worship his idols. These men, firm in their belief in the one true God, decided to run away to protect their faith. They prayed for mercy and guidance, and God led them to a cave, but as they hid, they weren't alone. The Quran makes a special point to mention their companion, a dog. And it doesn't just mention the dog in passing. It describes its role with a level of detail that forces you to pay attention. Verse 18 of the chapter says, "You would have thought them awake though they were asleep. We turned them to the right and the left while their dog stretched his forelegs at the entrance." Here, the dog isn't a pest or some impure creature. It's a loyal guardian standing watch at the mouth of the cave, protecting these righteous believers. The men and their dog then fall into a miraculous sleep that lasts for over 300 years. When they wake up, they are a sign to all of humanity of God's power to bring us back to life and His mercy on those who have faith. Throughout this entire divine story, the dog is included as part of the group. In fact, when the Quran mentions the arguments people had later about how many men were in the cave, the dog is part of every count. Verse 22 says people speculated. Some will say there were 3, the 4th of them being their dog. Others say there were 5, the 6th of them being their dog. And still others say there were 7, the 8th of them being their dog. The dog isn't an afterthought. It's so central to the group that it's included in every single scenario, honored just like the believers it guarded. Section 3. Divine recognition. Analyzing the dog's role. The fact that the dog is in the Quran is a big deal, but how it's mentioned is even more incredible. This wasn't just some random dog. It was a companion to people so holy that God immortalized their story in His eternal word. Think about that for a second. If just having a dog around was enough to scare away angels of mercy, why would God let one guard these pious men who were directly under his protection? Why would he include this dog in a sacred story meant to guide all of us forever? The dog's posture, stretching its forelegs at the entrance, is the pose of a loyal guard, protective even while in a miraculous sleep. It's a symbol of unwavering loyalty and courage. The dog didn't just happen to be there. It chose to go with these men on their dangerous journey, and in return it was given the same miracle of preservation. Some Islamic traditions even give the dog a name, Kitmir, treating it as a celebrated figure in this sacred story. This story makes you ask a critical question. How can an animal be considered fundamentally impure or evil when the Quran itself lifts one up as a hero and a guardian of saints? The story from Surah Al-Kahf is a powerful, direct challenge to the idea that dogs are vile in God's eyes. It suggests that an animal's worth isn't based on its species, but on its actions, and this dog's action was one of pure, selfless loyalty to the friends of God. It was honored by God for its loyalty, a lesson that seems to have been tragically overlooked. Section 4. Beyond the cave, dogs in broader Islamic tradition, and the honorable mention in Surah Al-Kahf isn't a one-off. The Quran brings up dogs in another very practical way. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 4, God clarifies what food is lawful and says you can eat what has been caught by trained hunting animals. The verse says, lawful for you are good things and what you have trained of hunting animals which you teach as Allah has taught you. So eat of what they catch for you, and mention the name of Allah upon it. The term used for hunting animals here is widely understood to include trained dogs. This is a game changer. If the game caught by a hunting dog is considered pure enough to eat, that really complicates the idea that a dog's saliva contaminates everything it touches. History also shows that dogs were a normal part of early Muslim life, valued for guarding homes, herding livestock, and hunting. It's this bigger picture that has led many scholars, both classic and modern, to take a second look. The Maliki school of Islamic law, for instance, has one of the most relaxed views, arguing that dogs aren't inherently impure at all, not their saliva, not their fur. Maliki scholars say the hadith about washing the bowl 7 times was likely a rule for good hygiene, especially with stray dogs that could carry disease, not a final verdict on all dogs. Modern scholars like Dr. Khaled Abu el-Fadl argue forcefully that many of the anti-dog feelings come from pre-Islamic Arab myths or weak traditions, not from the core teachings of the Quran. He points out that it doesn't make sense for God to create an animal with so much natural loyalty and love only to condemn it, and it doesn't stop there. The hadith are full of stories that push for compassion towards dogs. The most famous one tells of a man, or in another version, a prostitute who had all their sins forgiven by God simply for giving water to a dying, thirsty dog. This powerful story shows that one act of kindness to a dog is so huge that it can earn you a ticket to paradise. How could a creature be worthless if being kind to it is ranked so highly by God? This journey through the Quran and Islamic tradition shows a much more compassionate and complex view of dogs than many of us were taught. It's a view rooted in scripture, history, and mercy. If this has opened your eyes to a new way of thinking, please share it with others who might be wrestling with this. I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below. What were you taught about dogs, and how does this information change your perspective? And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that challenges misconceptions and explores the deep wisdom of Islam. So where does that leave us? Are dogs forbidden, impure creatures in Islam? The evidence from the Quran says no. The divine text celebrates a dog for its loyalty, acknowledges its usefulness, and through the Prophet's teachings shows that kindness to a dog can be a path to salvation. The story of the dog in the cave isn't just a charming detail, it's a profound lesson. It teaches us that in God's eyes, honor isn't limited by species. It shows that loyalty and righteousness are virtues to be respected, whether you find them in a person or their faithful animal companion. The cultural stigma against dogs in many parts of the Muslim world seems to fly in the face of the Quran's own story. While cleanliness is a huge part of faith, It shouldn't be twisted to justify cruelty or an aversion that has no basis. The sacred dog of Surah Al-Kahf is an eternal witness, a testament to a more compassionate understanding, reminding us that every one of God's creatures has a purpose and a place in His vast, merciful creation.